Hey, what is up guys? Guitar Rock here. Welcome back to another Tower of Fantasy video. Now I believe when you click on this video, you have one question and one question only. Should you try to 1-star your Frigg, right? So hopefully in this video, I can give you guys a nuance on whether or not it's worth it in terms of the damage. Definitely, there is damage improvements. Alright, so the 1-star is going to do more damage than the 0-star. But how much damage is that? Hopefully in this video you guys can make the decision for yourself, and I'll give you guys my thoughts at the end of the video later. So let's jump into it. Alright, so first things first, let's talk about the 1-star specifically. So if you guys are not aware, Frigg at 1-star, this is very important. There's a little bit of confusion previously, but I think they have fixed it ever since. Gain 1 frostiness points every time you deal 550% times frost attack of damage in the frost domain. So up to 10 frostiness points can be accumulated. Now how do you know how many frostiness points you have? So basically in the middle of the screen at the bottom near your HP bar, you can actually look at it right there. So that will be the amount of frostiness points and how much you deal during the when you're fighting in battle, right? So that's the way of indication of telling how many frostiness points you have currently. And when the frost domain ends, this is where it gets really super tricky, right? It says that when it ends, frostiness points multiplied by frost attack, multiplied by 95% of blast damage will be dealt to all enemies in the frost domain. So I was assuming that the blast or the explosion is going to be huge, but it's actually very mild. You need to look out for this, right? So I've been trying to look at it, where's the damage. So if you have been just constantly multi-slashing away, it's quite hard to see this. So after leaving the frost domain, you lose 1 frostiness points every 3 seconds. Now, can you gain frostiness points when you swap to other weapons, or do you have to use Frigg's weapon, right? So the question is yes. As long as you're doing damage in the frozen domain, the frost domain, as you can see indication right here of me using Marrow, you can still get the frostiness points. As long as you're doing damage inside the domain, the frost domain, the points will always go up. So keep that in mind. So that gives you a little bit of versatility or flexibility. That means you can swap to whoever that you want, other ice team members, to do damage in the frost domain if you don't want to use Frigg. So I managed to record a video from the live stream earlier. Hopefully I can show you guys what's happening right now. As you can see, right? So it's going to be quite hard to observe this, but big shout out to Akisa for letting me test this out in the open world PvP, right? So let me just jump into the frozen domain. So now the frozen domain is, okay, this is like a very bad example, I know, because I'm doing this on a very grassy area. So the moment the frozen domain ends, we're going to have a look at the damage. And okay, so I'm just going to pause here and hopefully you guys can observe the damage. This is about 800 damage, 810, 860 and 819, right? And then sometimes I will crit, and I believe if I crit, you can see 1002, 863, 837. Very consistent damage is always around there. So because it's all against one player, so it's harder to get the max stacks. I don't think I get a lot of stacks here. And notice one thing that you guys need to notice as well. I think this is a very good example that we can talk about. Notice right here, I managed to get 1 stack right here. Notice this is like 1 stack, and if you exit the frozen domain, which I did right here, look, the frostiness thing just disappear. So if you exit the domain by accident, it basically, I think it resets it, which is kind of a bummer. So you gotta be careful with that. Make sure you are always inside the domain. So this is about 800. Notice now I have about 2 stacks, and I think the frozen domain is about to end right here, and you guys can see the damage. Okay, so when the frozen domain ends, you can see now we get 1 more source of damage. So 6,691. This is the frozen domain damage. It looks like as though I'm doing 4 multi-slash, but it's not, because you can tell the multi-slash damage is 1100, 1002, 1008. This one is from the frostiness point. So this is from about 3 frostiness points, right? About 2 to 3 frostiness points. I think I managed to stack it up to 3. So 3 gives you about 6,000, that's why it's a little bit low. So let's jump into a bygone phantasm and show you guys what happens if you get a higher points, right? Okay, so this is in bygone phantasm testing earlier today during the stream. You can see I'm fighting against Aegis, which is the boss. I personally like this boss, very cool design. Hopefully, let's see, right now we got about 2 stacks, 3 stacks. Hopefully I'll be able to pause once the time ends. Now again, I'm testing. I want to give you guys a couple of scenario, and I hope you guys can take these variables into consideration, because when you fight against a single boss, the frostiness points is going to be harder to stack. So right now you can see I managed to get about 6 stacks. Okay, 22,000 from around 6 stacks. So this boss, you know, when you're doing damage to boss, is about 22,000. I would say it's actually pretty good. Alright, from this particular Frozen Domain ending, you will be able to get consistently about 22,000 every 25 seconds, which is every time your Frozen Domain expires. Alright, so let's give you guys one more example. Now I'm fighting multiple enemies in Bygone Phantasm. Now, this is where Frigg really shines. When you have multiple enemies like this, stacking the frostiness points is so easy. It's just insanely fast, insanely crazy. Now you can see I'm constantly hitting 3 enemies. Alright, I'm going to see if I can pause it. So this is at max 10 points right here, as you guys can see. Alright, so how much can we do? 37,000, 25,000, and 36,000. Alright, so each respective enemy received this amount of damage. Now you can see how this damage scales if there are more enemies. Alright, so this guy received 37,000, this guy receives 25,000 damage, and the alpha mouse at the right received 36,000 damage. Now this adds up to a total of almost 100,000 damage. 100k damage. And is that worth it to get your Frigg to 1 star? In my humble opinion, yes. Now of course, like I said, this scales up proportionally. I feel like the more enemies is in that Frozen Domain area, the more the damage goes up. Alright, it scales like crazy. So that's something that we can observe here. Alright, so more enemies equals to more damage. Hopefully that makes sense, right? So it really depends on how you look at the situation. So I think Frigg really shines when you're fighting or playing through Bygone Phantasm or in places where there are a lot of enemies. Even when you fight bosses, some bosses like a Robot, she can summon the beast, right? Most bosses are like single target or solo alone, but some bosses, they do summon minions. So that's something that also you can take advantage of. Now, when we talk about 3 star though, going higher, is that worth it though for free to play? Now 3 star is pretty cool. It increased frostiness limit to 15. Now this is where I might think this is not worth it, because as you guys saw earlier, right? Single target enemy, it's hard to get frostiness point up to 10 even. Like you can barely get it up to 6 and 7. Sometimes if you mess up, if the boss hit you, you are going to be stuck at most 5 to 6 points. Now the 3 stars is very dependent on the number of enemies. Like to get frostiness limit to 15, you need to do a lot of damage and there need to be lots of enemies. So I don't think this is something that a lot of players can utilize right now unless you have very good like matrices etc, because if you guys are not aware, the frostiness points is based on the amount of damage you deal every time in the Frost Domain. So that's something that you have to keep in mind, right? One more thing is when you use Discharge, you also gain the ability to, when you use Discharge skills of Frost weapons in the Frost Domain, so you deal additional damage equals to the current frostiness to all targets in the Frost Domain. I can see this being useful, much more useful in the future once Sakifuwa is available to global players, but for now, I do think that a lot of free to play going to 3 star is just not worth it at this point in the game. Now in the future, yes, maybe we'll see much more usage of this for sure. So yeah, for the time being, definitely 1 star. I can see that insane damage for sure. I would highly recommend you guys to consider it if you guys have already pulled for Frigg. Alright, so that's gonna be it for this video guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and as always, let me know what you guys think. So yeah, subscribe if you haven't already, give this video a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a nice day, goodbye.